known him for over 30 years. I think that's the record. Okay, ni hao. Nice to see you all. I need to start by disabusing you of what Anthony's just said. I'm going to talk about something that I'm passionate about, but it isn't something I've developed. It's something I came upon, I guess kind of late in my journey, and it's something which has changed my life, and it's changed many other people's lives. And that's why I want to share it with you. It's called life alignment. Life alignment. It's a great term, and it's a great energy healing system. It works on all levels. So it works on the physical level, it works on the emotional level, it works on the mental level, and it works on the spiritual level. And it works in all aspects of life. So it works on your health, your physical well-being. It works on buildings, actually. The buildings that you live in, the buildings that you work in. It works fantastically with businesses, which I guess most of us are involved in one way or another. And it also works in aligning the environment in which we live. And all of these, I think, are subjects which have been touched on today. And yes, I do hope that this begins to pull it all together. So, I want you to hold two pictures in your mind. The first is, as an example, the Yangtze River. Vast river, one of the longest rivers in the world, flows from its birth in the west to its death as a river in the east when it meets the ocean. And along the way, it passes all sorts of different landscapes. It has many different adventures. It collects a whole load of things as it goes on its path. And every time it meets some kind of barrier, some kind of blockage, a boulder, something like that, it drops a piece of sediment. And over time, more and more sediment is dropped, and a bigger pile of sediment builds up, which has an impact on the flow of that river. It can't flow the way that nature originally intended. It has to deviate. It goes slightly out of alignment. Sometimes it gets very sluggish. And of course now, as it races on its way, past the sluggish stage, it gets to the Three Gorges Dam. And what happens there is that its natural course is completely stopped. It can no longer flow naturally. First image, hold that. Second image, people have mentioned before, and it's the Great Wall. As has been said, it was built to protect, to keep enemies out, to keep people in. Essentially, it was built to separate and to divide. So, build up of sediment, walls going up to protect. Those are the two images I want you to hold in your mind, and I'd now like you to consider yourself and your life as a river. And just momentarily, can you look into the waters of your river? What are they like now? Are your waters running smoothly? Are they turbulent? Are they sluggish? Can you sense any sediment in your river? Anything that's slightly blocking your energy, that's throwing you slightly out of alignment? Are you aware of any of the walls that you've put up in your life? Because believe me, you have put up some walls, and some of them you put up with lightning speed. And you did it to protect yourself, because that's what we do as human beings. The sad thing is, those very protective actions that we take cause blockages in our energy, and they throw us out of alignment with who we truly are. Life alignment is all about bringing you back into alignment with who you really are. Not the you that your parents want you to be, not the you that your boss wants you to be, not the you that society wants you to be, but the you that is really you. That's what life alignment is all about. Let me talk a little bit about where these blockages come from for us. every single event that's ever happened to you is stored in what I'm going to call your biocomputer. It's a digital library which has a vast memory. It records absolutely everything. So all these events, good, bad, and indifferent, are there. I want to talk about the kind of indifferent and the bad ones, because those are the ones that cause the blockages. And they come from all those events, they come from the values and the beliefs that your parents have instilled in you, that society has instilled in you. They come from those rebellious acts when you were a teenager. And they've developed in you patterns of how you behave, programs of what you do when certain things happen to you. On the other hand, you've got all the pollution that Gilbert spoke so eloquently about this morning. The pollution of modern technology, of computers, of microwaves. How many of you have a cell phone? Okay. How many of you use it every single day, at least once? Okay. Are you aware of the damage that's doing to you? I'll show you afterwards if you're interested. There's a lot of pollution which comes from that. There's also the chemical and toxic pollution from the things that we put on our earth, that we spray on our food, and that we therefore ingest, and that we breathe in the very air that we breathe. Powerful combinations. Our own past and our programmed baggage, if you like, and the pollution of modern life. And all this manifests itself, if it's connected to these indifferent and bad experiences, in symptoms which I'm sure you are familiar with either yourself or with people that you know. And that's things like migraine headaches. It's things like back pain. It's things like insomnia, stress, panic attacks, depression, illnesses, coughs that won't go away, even to fairly severe illnesses. Okay, before we get too depressed about this, I need to tell you how life alignment can actually, with pinpoint accuracy, rather like acupuncture has pinpoint accuracy, can go to the blockage, that's the sediment of the wall, that you are ready to release. And through its technology, it can help you release that blockage and so come into alignment with yourself. To explain this complexity, I just need to mention 3 quantum physics principles, which as TED devotees I'm sure you're aware of, so if you already know, forgive. But the first one is, as Einstein said, everything is energy. Everything. So that's you, me, these trees, the chairs, the butterflies, the wall. It's also the air around us. These physical things that I point out actually only represent between 1% and 5% of all the energy that is. Only 1% to 5%. That means all this is 95 to 98% of what is. Can you feel your physical being? I'm sure you can. Do you have a sense of that 95 to 98% that's you? See if you can feel it right now. Can you sense the 95 to 98% of the person who's sitting right next to you, or the person who's behind you or in front of you? Because that leads me to the second principle, which is we're all interconnected in what's called the field. Everything has a field of energy, and all those fields are interconnected and linked together. And that means that something that happens in one part of this 98% affects something elsewhere. Just think of the impact if you were to turn to your neighbour and say some harsh words. Think of the impact that would have on their physical being. You look as if you might enjoy that. No. What would happen is his energy field would actually contract. Okay, so we need to reverse that. So now I want you to think of sending loving, kind, great, thoughts to the person sitting next to you. And hopefully you can feel the difference, which is your energy will in fact expand. Energy only does one of those two things. It either expands or it contracts. Life alignment is about finding ways for you to expand your energy, bring in more light. The third principle is that time is all time. It's not linear like we like to think in the West, it's all time. So, how does life alignment do it? It connects in the 99%. My 99% would connect with your 99%. And I would ask permission. Do we have permission to work together? And her 99%, which I'll call the higher self or the super consciousness, her biocomputer in a way. If it says yes, we can now work together. The life alignment technology would allow me to find out the priority blockage that this person is ready to release. And the technology would also help me find the way through to help her release it. Kind of complicated, so let me give you 3 examples to illustrate. The first is a physical one, because you can't actually see emotional changes, but you can see physical ones. And this concerns a woman at a demonstration who had severe scoliosis, which is curvature of the spine, and it really was severe. When she stood up, her shoulders were like that, literally. And she was probably in her late 40s, early 50s, so this is something that had been with her most of her life. She lay on the couch, which is where we operate with life alignment, and the 2 words which were connected to her condition, her physical condition, were found by dowsing off a list. As was a time frame in her life, a particular year which was relevant to the story causing her physical dis-ease, if you like. When she was given these 2 words and the time frame, she immediately burst into tears. Spontaneously burst into tears. The technology was used to clear the balance, which in a private session you take longer with, but this was just using some energetic technology. And after about 2 minutes, she stood up. Her scoliosis had improved dramatically. And what was even more dramatic to see was her shoulders were now straight. Completely straight. What had happened, essentially, is, if any of you know anything about Bruce Lipton, you'll know what I'm going to talk about now. Cellular memory holds patterns of how we are. What happens is an event occurs and our cells go into a spasm, a pattern. And this becomes programmed as part of our cellular memory. And every time anything with the same frequency as that first event happens, the cells, I'm going to move this away a minute, the cells go, we recognize this, this is where we go like that. And so they reinforce that pattern, which in this woman's case is then reinforced in her body. What life alignment does is it connects the person through time, time being all time, with that moment when the spasm occurred originally, and working simultaneously on the emotional level. She burst into tears, she connected with the story. It energetically works to release that, to change the frequency. And what happens is the cellular memory is released and it forms a different pattern. So next time anything occurs which had that original frequency comes along, the cells don't recognize it because that pattern has been released. So that's how life alignment works. Second example is about a business and the building in which it's practiced. So buildings and environments. A very busy architectural practice, very successful. Computers all around them. Cell phones by the slack handful. Routers, as much modern technological pollution as you could think of. I won't say dream of. Added to that was the geopathic stress from what was an underground stream running underneath, probably quite deep underneath the building, which was emitting a certain frequency, which is disharmonious, if you like, with the human frequency. All these things combined to such an extent that this practice had incredibly high sickness. People were off with stress, people had illnesses that wouldn't clear, constantly off with coughs and colds, even incidences of cancer and other illnesses. By identifying what was wrong, if you like, in the harmony, in the frequency of this building, this environment, we were able to balance, to align the harmony in the building with that of the occupants. So it kind of has a protective layer around it which balances out those disharmonious frequencies. And within a very short space of time, the rate of sickness was dramatically reduced. My final example I'd like to give you is one of my own stories. An early experience of life alignment for me was when I was asked to connect with the moment of my birth. Now, there will be some cynical, rational, left-brained, sceptical people in the audience who are saying, don't be silly. How can you possibly remember your moment of birth? And you know what? You're absolutely right. I have no cognitive memory of my birth at all. But for once in my life, I allowed my rational brain to go to sleep. And my biocomputer enabled me to connect through time with that moment. And I saw the look on my father's face when he was presented with another daughter. And I saw the way he masked that look completely, changed it so that my mother wouldn't see. And I experienced the contraction of myself on seeing that. The life alignment technology enabled me to, if you like, choose to respond to that event in a very different way, to reach a different outcome, a different understanding, if you like, of how my father reacted and why he reacted. And in doing that, I was able to release, actually for me it was a big wall that I put up at that moment, and I felt completely different. And I realized that for most of my life, I had been trying to be the best son, but I'm clearly not. Okay, so my challenge to you is to look at your river, go into your waters. Can you sense the undercurrents in your waters? Do you know where they are? Would you like to take away that sediment? Would you like to break down the walls, break down the barriers, and truly align with who you are? Life alignment can help. Thank you.